Now take a look at this, this slide. Does it look familiar to you? You know, unfortunately, this is what teachers used to apply in their teachings, and this is something that teachers are still applying in their classroom teaching. You know, this is the grammar translation method. This is an obsolete method where everyone focuses on grammar. If there was a marathon, a competition, an international competition for knowledge of grammar, by far, Syrian teachers and Syrian students would win. And by that, I mean in the ability to recite the grammar constructions, and the grammar rules. But knowing the structure of the language does not mean you know the language, right? Now, why do we have this? Why do teachers resort to this? Because of this. Does this look familiar to you? This is the 2018 high school scientific branch exam question. Look at it. Look at the types of questions, right? Complete the following dialogues with questions. This is grammar. Rewrite the following sentence as required in brackets. This is a grammar. Fill in the gaps. This is grammar. Fill in the spaces with words in the list. Again, this is a grammar. Oops, sorry. And so on, right? Complete it with the clauses, grammar. Now, I wonder, I mean, is it really our job to test students' knowledge of grammar? After 12 years of learning English, this is the most that we expect out of students? 12 years. 12 years. Now, the reason that we are really surprised with this type of question, it has not changed. These are the type of questions that are repeated again year after year, which means that teachers go into their classrooms. They do not teach for the sake of learning. They do not teach for the sake of education. They do not teach for the sake of knowledge. They teach for the sake of these types of questions, because they know that these are the types of questions that students are going to be asked on. Now, I don't want to say that teachers are doing, you know, a bad job, because the burdens on English language teachers in Syria is huge. When we talk about classrooms, now, of course, the information, as I said, that I'm providing is based on a survey. Is 517 Syrian English language teachers took part in, and communication with back and forth with English language teachers and supervisors and teachers who presented their journals to me of their classroom teachings. Now, most of them talked about classrooms being overcrowded. And of course, we know that's the reality of the classrooms. We're talking about 50 to 60 students in the classrooms. There's no time to practice dialogues. Even if the supervisor tells these teachers in the in-service development programs, you need to focus on students in the classrooms. How is that possible? You know, even if the supervisors tell you need to focus on creating dialogues and practicing the conversation. Okay, I can do that, but give me audio files to do that. Give me electricity to do that. Provide me with audio equipment in the classroom. I mean, how are the students going to listen? And then there are other stuff or other issues that hinder the process of learning. How can you expect teachers to teach 3 books, like in high school, for example, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade? How are teachers supposed to teach 3 English language dense textbooks when they only have 3 to 4, 5 maximum lessons or periods during the week, 45 to 40 minutes each? How is that even possible? And as we know, many students, especially in high school, they drop out towards they stop attending in March. And moreover, teachers are, in a way, they are threatened to be penalized, right? I mean, you want them to teach everything, all the aspects of language, with this huge number of students in the classroom. And by doing so, that means they require a lot of time. And yet the supervisors will come and say, oh, you've fallen back on the national lesson plan. You are going to be penalized, 3% of your salary or whatsoever. I mean, teachers are not going to, I mean, they already have financial burdens. They don't need someone to come and cut back their salaries. Moreover, students are intelligent, right? Also, students are looking out for their own sake. They tell teachers, why are you teaching us these things if we are not going to be graded on them, if we are not going to be tested on them? Nobody needs them. Nobody's going to ask me to talk. Nobody's going to ask me to listen. Everyone's going to ask me to fill in the brackets. Even when I move to the university, everyone's going to ask me the same thing. And that's why when students finish high school, they're not even able to write, one passage. Teachers usually provide the students with those passages. Again, the in-service development programs that I took a look at focused on the communicative approach, focused on task-based approach, focused on project-based approach, focused on the flipped classroom, yet they neglected that teachers only have 3 sessions. They neglected that there's only 1 teacher and 65 students. They neglected that there's only 40 minutes or 45 minutes of instruction time. They neglected all the holidays that teachers go through. Now, this is what I've been talking about, the development programs in Syrian context. Take a look at this. This is some of the data in the research. When teachers were asked to rank their training, take a look what came in first place. In top place, it was teaching grammar. In second place, it was teaching literacy skills, reading and writing. Why? Because in reading, teachers just read and translate the passages. In writing, teachers write on the board and, or you might have private tutors giving this to the students. Training on new applications. Teachers mentioned they were trained on new applications, but of course they said that they were not possible. Again, assessing students, planning lessons. I mean, take a look, planning lesson is in 6th place, managing the classroom and so, and then in the last place at the bottom is teaching oral skills. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Teachers don't have time to teach conversations in their classrooms, and teachers don't have the equipment to teach listening. Take a look at this. This is the issues that teachers have with their development programs, in-service development programs. Take a look at it. In-service EFL teacher training programs are too theoretical. Look, that came in first place. What does that tell us? This is what teachers are screaming out to us, saying, we are not being trained. We are being lectured. The duration of the training programs is short. True. I mean, 5 sessions a week during spring break, that doesn't make a teacher out of you. A 2-day session during the weekend, during fall or spring, spring terms, that doesn't make a teacher out of you. Then if you look at it, designers of the in-service training programs, look at this. Do not ask for teachers' opinions on what they need training on. And this is really serious. How can I provide you with the appropriate training if I don't know what you need? I don't know. The people who are responsible for them seem to have more knowledge of this, of what the teachers need. Of course, the syllabus does not accommodate the levels of the new arriving students. And by new arriving students, we're talking about students who were forced to abandon their homeland, who have to abandon their cities and resettle in other cities. Teachers are not trained on how to deal with these students, especially those who have escaped conflict areas. The timing of these training programs is not suitable. And then at the end, teachers are not encouraged to pursue their graduate studies, which is due to the reduction of financial spending. As I said earlier, there used to be this incentive where go and do your PCG certificate in education, and we'll pay for you, you know, and now we're not paying for you. So this is some of the data. I, as an individual, was able to come up with this. I don't know why the supervisors or the people in charge of in-service development program were not able to come with this. I know this took a while for me to get. It took, as I said, this is a 3-year empirical study, but I did it. And I think if you have a whole team at the Ministry of Education, you have an army of supervisors and educators, I do believe they can do it in less time. So, implications for practice. What do I mean by implications of practice? Means suggestions. What can we do to improve in-service development programs for English language teachers here in Syria? So the first one is we need to admit our reality, which is we have a military conflict that is still occurring, that's still going on. You know, it's been happening for 10 years. It has not ended. It has not been resolved. And we need to take this and incorporate it into the development programs. You can't ignore the conflict. You can't pretend that it's not there and just ask teachers, go and do a project-based classroom, go and have a flipped classroom, go and have a communicative session with your students. That doesn't work, you know. We need to acknowledge that teachers have feelings, that students have feelings, that there's interrupted learning, that there's tension, there's anger, there's poverty, there's anxiety. And this is where I would like to introduce a term. The other day, one of the presenters talked about willingness to learn. And she mentioned that, you know, students who don't speak in the classroom are not talkative in their social environment, which means they need a psychiatrist and not a teacher. Well, that is true, you know, and one of the American education researchers, her name is Kozlowski, with a colleague of hers, Handy, in 2017, they came up with this term that teachers need to be cultural workers. Okay, cultural workers. What does that mean? That means that the teachers should be able to produce classroom cultures that transform prevailing inequalities and injustices that students have experienced due to the conflict. How can teachers become cultural workers? That's the role of in-service development programs. Teachers need to know how to deal with students that come from, conflict backgrounds. You can't just ask them, well, don't ask them questions. Let them be quiet. Let them be silent. No, teachers need to reach out and they need to know how to do it, you know? So that's really an important term. Teachers as cultural